Hello, you are welcome. You would likely get offended if in my face-to-face interface with you, I doubted that you are a human being and then proceeded to inquire of you if you are a robot. However, it is entirely possible for one to reason and behave in auto fashion or in a mechanical manner. In other words, a person can come across as robotic, devoid of the rich inner life laid out in the previous episodes of this series. But let's put that aside for the moment. We shall revert to it shortly. This episode of the series, Consciousness and Personal Fulfillment, aims to debunk the increasingly common refrain, the growing chorus that machines will soon, perhaps in a few years, become more intelligent than humans and possibly exercise control over humankind. More intelligent than humans. Mark that. That is the slippery slope I take issue with here. More intelligent than humans. Those who make such assertions take human intelligence for granted, or to be blunt, they barely grasp what human intelligence constitutes. So they are easily swept up by the temptation to compare two things that aren't exactly comparable. Artificial intelligence, AI, is as to way artificial. It is an imitation of human intelligence. We considered the wholesome picture of human intelligence in the previous episodes of this series. Let us here restate what human intelligence, as embodied by consciousness, constitutes. Human intelligence, as man's critical or interpretive volition, does not only see and hear itself, but is also critical of itself and indeed distinguishes itself from all other experiences and knowledge. That volition is not only aware of itself, but also speaks for itself, which is man's essential voice. The human essence is adorned with psychical inclinations, such as the emotions, the imagination, intuitions, etc., which support man's cognitive function and self-direction. Let's rewind here in the interest of clarity. When I say the human essence sees and hears itself, this is what I mean. You see and hear your thoughts. You see and hear your sensory perceptions. You see and hear whatever you imagine. You are aware of your motives. You grasp your intuitions. And you can control and direct the entire array of psychical inclinations which underlie your cognitive function and self-direction. In a manner of speaking, you see or grasp all that in the mind's eye. And of course, the human essence voices the inclinations I have alluded to. That said, let us initially juxtapose the foregoing with a mathematical calculator. In simple terms, a person uses a mathematical calculator to make additions, subtractions, or multiplications. That machine, however complex it might be, does not understand. Please mark that word. it does not understand what it is doing, or indeed what it is being used for. It is dumb. It isn't a conscious thing. A mathematical calculator is a tool, just like the old-fashioned periscope in some submarine. The periscope enables the person behind it to see or detect what lingers in the waters around or above the submarine, and yet it cannot interpret or discern the images it relays. Conversely, and ideally so, you, the human being, do not engage experiences in a passive, auto, or mechanical fashion. You personally, please mark that word, personally. You personally engage in shaping and giving meaning to experiences. That is to say, your mental processes do not run in auto fashion. Rather, you exert those mental processes in a conscious and deliberate manner to build a rounded picture of your experiences and read or decipher their meaning. Still, ideally, we as human beings engage with experiences in a self-critical manner. So, as I do something, I am critical of how I am doing whatever I am doing. As I speak to you, I am simultaneously critical of my interface with you. I sense that I have your attention. From some of the faces around me, I perceive that doubts or questions are popping up in their minds, and then I endeavor to make myself clearer or better understood. Therefore, a person can detach from his experiences and critique not only the reality he perceives, but also the manner of his involvement with that reality. That too is a fundamental facet of human intelligence. We have observed in the course of this series that man's consciousness and his physical form cohere in the brain, giving rise to the mind. However, the human volition isn't matter. It is not a material, physical, or mechanistic reality. Consciousness is distinct from matter. It is a dimensionless volition. As I explained earlier, consciousness possesses neither mass nor weight. Moreover, it cannot be measured in terms of length, width, or depth. And because it is devoid of such measurable or quantifiable extents, consciousness is dimensionless. I hope you recall as well the observation we made in earlier episodes to the effect that dimensionless volition, consciousness, is imbued with moral sensibility. Anyhow, the other facet of man is physical. The human form is a physical reality. It is material and mechanistic at that. So, same for man's consciousness, which is dimensionless. Everything else about our souls is machine-like or some kind of programming. And that, by the way, includes mental conditioning as well as DNA, which carries the code or blueprint for the vital functions of our bodies. Now, because part of man is physical or material, without the grasp of consciousness, we risk tottering into the chasm of a bare biological or mechanistic outlook on human existence. From what we have observed so far, let us underline the unbridgeable gap between consciousness and a machine with four salient differences. Firstly, a machine such as a computer or a robot can only undertake the number of tasks or a particular function that it has been programmed or tooled for. On the other hand, consciousness can enact the infinite possibilities enabled by the imagination and intuition inherent to itself. That is why man has inbuilt capacity by his essential volition to adapt or improve his condition while keeping his mind open to the boundless possibilities that his essence embodies. Secondly, consciousness is not only aware of itself, but is also critical of itself and is naturally imbued with fellow feeling. And these capacities render the human volition deeply perceptive. That isn't the case with machines. A robot is incapable of the reflective inner life that facilitates all-round perception and critical things, along with the warmth and empathy characteristic of the human spirit. For instance, a child of 2 years or even younger can perceive sadness or fear among the grown-ups around him and experience the related feelings or emotions without having been in such circumstances before. It happens intuitively and not as a result of some programming. Still, can a robot enjoy a good meal and then as a result have its spirits lifted or feel better emotionally or psychologically? The point being, a robot is neither sentient nor conscious. Can a robot contemplate the future and experience trepidation because of the unfortunate circumstances that might happen? While a robot may be programmed to sound or make utterances resembling the human voice, the robot voice is intrinsically hollow. It is devoid of what underpins and sets human experience apart. A robot can be programmed to say it is sad or happy, but it is fundamentally incapable of the gut experience of joy, grief, or anxiety. It is a hollow talking machine and at best simply a utility. Thirdly, and critically too, consciousness, unlike a computer or a robot, is naturally imbued with moral sensibility that undergirds and completes man's intelligence. Now, regardless of the quality of its programming, a computer or robot is incapable of the tenor characteristic of human sensibility, which is at once rational and moral. Human intelligence is simultaneously rational and moral. Fourthly and lastly, unlike consciousness, which is man's essential volition, a robot or computer has no agency or will of its own. Consciousness is power in and of itself and does not need to be plugged into a power source like in the case of machines. As a matter of fact, you can have the machine starved of data or simply switch off the damn thing. Perhaps we need to continually remind ourselves that even AI is mostly fed on text, information, and data prepared by human beings. Ordinarily, AI depends on human intelligence. As such, we cannot in good sense limit or circumscribe human experience and cognitive function on what is simply regurgitated by a machine. To liken AI to human intelligence is to imbue a machine or an algorithm with the rich, if not exceptional, inner life that man carries within himself. It is only in that sense that we could have a machine behave in a manner indistinguishable from that of humans. As I mentioned earlier, that is an impossible feat. Any assertions to the contrary are simply hot air, hype as it were. We observed in one of the earlier episodes that human beings and conscious creatures are sentient owing to the tier of spirit that imbues their physical form. Life is spirit. It isn't a biological phenomenon. Life is what accords sentience to sentient creatures. We are not rendered sentient by some programming, code, or algorithm. No matter the quality of such programming, it cannot evolve sentience, let alone human intelligence. Still, even though your voice as a person is mediated by the lungs and the voice box in your throat, that voice isn't matter. The human spirit, or consciousness for that matter, isn't a biological or material thing. Now, when we do not have a grasp of consciousness, which is the kernel of human intelligence, we risk looking at man as merely matter, a bare biological machine. That has their consequences. Notably, such mentality inclines us to the slippery slope of more or less likening AI to human intelligence. When we assume consciousness is an assemblage of brain neurons, which is a noticeable tendency today, we predictably come to view intelligence as a biological phenomenon, biological intelligence, as it were. That biological intelligence is inter alia appraised in terms of the speed of nerve impulses in the human nervous system. And since the speed of those electrochemical impulses is much lower than the speed of digital signals along silicon-based wiring or artificial neural networks, some people somehow come to the conclusion that the machine is more intelligent than man. Wow, what a barren lens with which to view man's inner life. When we regard man simply as a biological machine, we dispense with moral sensibility, which, as to way, undergirds and completes human intelligence. That is to say, when we take consciousness out of the picture, out goes the spring of man's moral sense. Ultimately, we lose a balanced sense of our shared humanity, which otherwise engenders human kinship, warmth, and compassion for each other. As we saw in episode 5, that is, if my memory serves me well, without a grip on the kernel of human intelligence, we are susceptible to being programmed or conditioned with given inclinations and behavior. That is, one is not sufficiently self-critical and easily develops unhealthy mindsets over issues, while still the person is amenable to mind control via cultural programming or through the old-fashioned technique of lies and manipulation, or even the maleficent application of AI. Besides, without the rich inner life afforded by the grasp of consciousness, we are likely to settle for superficial relationships to the extent that we imagine it is possible to make out with machines, such as the robot wife that I saw publicized or foretold on social media. The lesson from this episode is this: we ought to embrace the kernel of human intelligence, which is consciousness. Otherwise, we are rendered open to a barren biological view of human existence, and that does not bode well for our fulfillment individually and society as a whole.